Good morning, students and guests and those who are attending from through online. Welcome to this August gathering. We have around 50 students in the offline mode and around 20 of them are in the online mode. Nearly 20. So most of them are attending. Good thing about this program. And let me introduce Colonel Dr. Mohinder Pal Singh, who is an expert in the defense segment, defense area, who is a retired colonel from the Indian Army. Colonel Singh is a graduate of St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, and he did his MBA and MBA from IIFT, for Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi, and done his post-graduation from Allahabad University and completed a PhD in defense and doctorate in international relations from Department of Defense and Strategic Studies, University of Allahabad. And he has published a number of articles in all leading journals and websites on strategic issues. And he served in the Indian Army in the Elite Infantry Regiment for 30 years. He has awarded Chief of Army Staff Commendation for his work. And he has published a good number of books and papers. And he's at present is the director of a think tank in Delhi called EGRU Foundation. EGRU Foundation is working on is a non-profit multi-disciplinary public policy organization engaged in independent high-quality research in the area of macroeconomics, public policy, welfare, national security, and diplomacy. So they used to conduct a lot of programs every week, and I used to circulate it among you also earlier, especially when some programs comes in the strategic aspects and all. So he's representing that organization, and I welcome you, sir, for this program. And now we can start. You can spare around 20-30 minutes easily, and then we can go for Q&A. Thank you, sir.
So thank you very much for the invitation, Manipal, and I'm grateful in the first occasion to interact with the students. And thank you also for the nice introduction. For those of you who don't have much knowledge about armed forces, infantry is the leading combat arm, and it leads the battle. If whenever there's a battle, so infantry is the one which leads the battle. And I have served there in about 30 years. And also, along with that, I had my academic pursuits in mind. So I have also, in detail, studied the defense, and I went up to my doctorate in that field, strategic and the defense field. So when we talk of budget, I'll come to the 2022-23 budget slightly later. So what is defense budgeting? If we talk of that, so defense and budget are two different entities, interwoven together for some specific purpose. Now, the purpose of the defense is to provide security to the people, to the society, and to the nation, whereas budget plays a role of providing necessary resources to the defense to achieve that objective. Now, in the strictest economic sense, budget is nothing but an estimate of all anticipated receipts and expenditures of the central government or the state government, whichever it is there, or the society or a corporate sector or a family or an individual, right? Thus budget is basically, what is budget is simply an account of income and expenditure. But the defense budget cannot be termed or explained and understood in such simple words. It is not only an account of income and expenditure for the defense purposes. The defense budget is linked to so many things. It is linked to strategic doctrine. It is linked to the defense policy. It is linked to the threat perception the country is facing. It is also limited to resources available to the country. It is limited to the nation's capacity to earmark the resources for the defense, the strategic scenario of the region and the world, and international relations of that country, and of course, the paramount, the national interest. Now you see, Adam Smith, who laid down the foundation of defense economics, emphasized that the defense of the state is a social responsibility. And the people should bear the cost of defense as per their economic capability. So defense budget hence is linked to all the factors which I just mentioned: strategic doctrine, defense policy, threat perception, resource availability, geopolitical scenario in the region and the world, and the national interest. So having said that, another noted economist, John Keynes, said, and I quote, "In war, the contestants do not just engage each other, they attack the economies in the rear with as much vigor as, and sometimes more, than they attack each other." Unquote. So having given you this broad framework of the defense budget, our country started earmarking. Of course, the moment we started with the budgeting process, we have been earmarking amount for the defense as per our availability and as per the threat perception. It has touched at times 3.5% of GDP. It has touched at times 1.8, 1.9% of GDP. Depending on what we require at that moment, we have been able to allocate. As far as our countries and the geopolitics of our area is concerned, there is nothing hidden that we have a long maritime border at the sea border, and we also have a reasonably long land border. And with two countries, of course, the land borders with many countries, especially to mention the Pakistan and China, where the border is generally volatile and it is being guarded 24/7. Of course, we have border with other countries as well. You're aware, Bangladesh, with Myanmar, with Afghanistan, and Nepal, and all these countries. Hence, to keep our borders secure, we have to have our defense forces absolutely in line, in sync with the latest weaponry, and because we are having our guard 24/7, we also need to dovetail a lot of technology into our defense sector. So, if I talk about what so far we have had, India did not have a very strong defense industry as far as defense production of the hardware is concerned. So we needed to upgrade our defense potential. So we were exporting a lot of weapons. We all know traditionally we have been importing weapons from weapon platforms from Russia, and of course now we have also shifted to USA and some other countries also we have been taking. And India's import became quite a large, that we are of the total arms import. If you see the CIPRI report, India is the second largest importer as far as 2020 is concerned. So almost 9.5% of the total import of defense weapons and platform defense hardware of the world, we were at number 2 with 9.5%. Which total this thing in the world is approximately $22.4 billion as for 2020 this thing is concerned, and out of that, approximately nearly $2.79 billion was imported by India. Now, importing defense equipment is a very costly affair. Just to substantiate what I'm saying, we all heard of Rafale. We are very happy to have taken the latest fighter aircraft for our defense systems, latest one, but it comes at a very high price also. The cost of Rafale, 59,000 crores. 36 Rafales was costing us 59,000 crores, which brings towards the cost of each aircraft approximately 15 to 1600 crores. Now, same thing if we compare to our own indigenously designed aircraft, Tejas, right, which is now coming in. 73 Tejas Air Force in the first deal which is taken from HAL is costing 48,000 crores, which means that each aircraft approximately 650 crores. which means it is less than 50% cost. Now, if we import, of course, I'm not comparing. Rafale is certainly as far as comparison is concerned, at a slightly higher level. Fine. But if we keep promoting our own industry, they will also reach a day when they'll create an aircraft, if not the same, better than Rafale. It is because so far our defense industry has not grown and R&D has not come that it is costing us so heavy a price. Another example I'll give is buying the guns. Now, the Indian own manufacturing of guns and is on is already on, and I think within a short span of time we'll be able to make our own guns. But so far we had to buy because our old guns, one of the guns which we presently had were old vintage and they needed immediate replacement. So we went in for two guns. One was from the USA M777, that's a howitzer, and the other one was K9 Vajra from South Korea. Now these two guns were taking about 145 of M777 and 100 guns, and we have now got into a deal in which we take in a ready-made state about 10% or 15% of the weapons. Rest we want them to come and manufacture in India, right? So in this case of M777, which is of BAE Systems of USA, there's a tie-up with Mahindra Defense Systems Limited. They'll be manufacturing, they're taking 25 guns in the ready state and about 120 guns in the manufactured in India. And so K9 Vajra, the other gun, it is 10 pieces in the ready state and about other 100 guns with LNT systems. Now, this initiative which has now come in is going to boost up in a big way. And alongside this, it is very important to understand the various components of the budget. Now, just a small word about it. Most of you, I think, you are already having some table I can see on the screen. Can you remove this table, please? Which is there? Somebody is projecting this, or I can see a table on the screen, table 1. Can it be removed, please? Yeah. Actually, that was distracting me. So, the budget, defense budget, basically consists of two broad parts: the revenue budget and the capital budget. So it's very important as a student to understand this, because I'll be very frank with you. When I was a student, that time one really did not go into these details. We all just hear the budget, and the defense is one part of the budget. Okay, how much allocation to defense? Then we see how much percentage increase, and everybody says, okay, this is a good budget, or what is the percentage of GDP. Maximum students of this strategic or geopolitical scenario are basically looking at comparison, which country is spending what percentage of GDP. But when you look at actual terms, now see, then it is a lot of difference. And in actual terms, what comes in, how much border you have to secure? What is per capita expenditure on defense? How much population is being secured? Those factors also play a lot of role when you have to, guard your borders. Now, US, as far is concerned, is spending around $700 billion annually on the defense. Why? Because they don't have any border threat, but they want to be present all over the world. To be present, to have an army which is operating all over the world, you need to have a heavy budget. India needs budget on defense because we have to secure our borders. We are at $70 billion. The present budget of 2022 is $71 billion. If you look at China, it is at $240 billion. So when we purely look at in terms of percentage of GDP, it would be probably the same. 2.5, 2.6, 2.8. But when we come to actual terms, if a country is spending $700 billion annually on the defense, Obviously, they can muster much bigger weapons, much bigger platforms, much bigger ships, much advanced aircrafts, vis-a-vis a country which is not able to spend that much amount. But then again, the comparison you cannot draw because it all depends on the threat perception and your national interest. Now, if the national interest is like China, where you want to expansionist mode, obviously you will have more budget. So that is basically to understand. Now, revenue and capital are the two parts, broad parts. Revenue goes in for salaries, pensions, or day-to-day upkeep, and the capital goes in for purchases of weapon platforms, ships, aircrafts, and all other material, which is in terms you can call hardware. So this is something which you need to understand when you look at a budget. When the budget comes, generally you will find the finance minister giving this is the capital, this is the revenue. So broadly in your mind, it should come. This is what we are actually spending. So most of the analysts, they look at the capital part of the budget. That how much is this year going to be allocated to the hardware purchases, because that is directly proportional to what we need and what we have on ground. Right. So this year, and also just to touch a little base with the basics, the defense budget includes Army, Navy, Air Force allocations. It also includes DRDO, Defense Research Organization. It also includes some paramilitary forces under Ministry of Defense like JACLI or like Border Roads, Rashtra Rifles. They are all under Ministry of Defense. It also includes ECHS, that is the and also the defense civilians, which are part of the Ministry of Defense. So all this allocations included in the defense. It also includes a major chunk of the pensions of the defense personnel. Right. So some like this chart in which you were showing earlier there, it showed that less the pension. Some of the analysts, they remove the pension part, and because this is an ongoing process, those who have served the nation, they need to be taken care of, right? So the pension budget is a large chunk, and some people see it without the pension budget because they feel that the pension is something which is there, is going to stay. So let's not keep that as part of the calculating as part of GDP, but some keep it like that. But the main budget which is presented in the parliament has a chunk of pensions, which generally I feel is about 20% of the total budget. Now let's come to, so this was the basically to touch the base, and let's come to the 2022 budget. And this budget of 2022, which is presented on the 1st February, it was a total allocation of 5.25 lakh crores, right? And which was a increase of around 9.8% from the previous year. 5 point, to be specific, if I feel I'm seeing that some of you students are noting down, 5.25166.15 crores is the exact defense allocation. I repeat, 5.25166.15 crores. So 5,25,000 crores, which was an increase of 9.8% from the previous allocation at the budget of 4.78. But there is something called as RE stage, revised estimate stage. At the BE stage, this was increased. At the RE stage, revised estimate stage, the overall increase was 4.5%. Now, if we look at the total government expenditures, this was around 13% of the total government expenditures, which was being there for quite some years. Approximately around this much is the expenditure. Now, highlights of this budget, which is being seen in a very positive manner, are firstly, the capital procurement budget saw an increase from 1.35 to 1.52 lakh crores. 1.52 lakh crores was a capital increase, which was approximately 13% higher than the initial outlay last year. That showed that the government is going to go in for good capital purchases, and they're allocated in spite of this pandemic and so many other areas which need allocations, they have their priority as the defense is concerned. And why not? The revenue budget saw a reasonable increase, not much. It was 3.64 crores, out of which 1.19 crores was pensions. So a lot of students or a lot of analysts, remove this part, 1.2 lakh crores, and then see the budget as how much is that now part of the GDP. So if I don't remove it, I generally don't remove this part. So it comes to around 2.4, 2.5% of the GDP, and that's a good enough allocation. And if you remove this pension part, of course, it will dip down to around 1.8% of the GDP. Now, what the finance minister proposed in this budget was 68% of the capital procurement will be done through domestic industry. That was a real fillip to Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now imagine whatever purchases the country is doing for defense, now they have said 68% of the capital expenditure will come from the okay. So sorry for the interruption. So this was a fantastic move where we are going to boost our own industry to manufacture defense equipment and also the weapon platform. The second move which came in a very welcome manner was to incorporate the private sector in R&D. Now there was a webinar by ASSOCHAM, and I think it was on 20th January. They were discussing the shadow budget, and I was speaking on that, and I was giving stress on this point that unless we incorporate or we dovetail our private sector into R&D, not straight away into manufacturing. Well, unless there's the R&D, the manufacturing sector cannot build new weapon platforms. And in defense, the platforms take many years. So if you have to make a new ship, you have to plan 15 years in advance. Shipbuilding is a very slow process. So if you have to have a ship, even when you order a ship with a new different country, they supply you after many years, right? So if we want to develop our own, we have to incorporate our private sector into the defense R&D. Though we have our own defense R&D organization, which is DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization, which is doing a fantastic job. But to synergize the R&D, if you look worldwide, a lot of private companies, private sector companies have come into and developed world-class weapon platforms where alongside their own industrial output. Okay, so this time this was a welcome move where the finance minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, she announced that 25% of the R&D budget will be earmarked to incorporate the private sector into R&D. So what I can see this now, India, the moment we start investing in R&D, the day is not far that we will be able to develop our own smart weapons, our own sophisticated technological advanced weapons, maybe within 5 years and 10 years from now. And this is what we should be actually looking at. So private sector is going to be encouraged to study the defense platforms and get into the R&D and manufacturing mode subsequently. So overall, if I look at the defense allocations in this budget, it was very well balanced. Where we needed impetus, the finance minister has allocated adequate amount to give impetus, and the best part came when we is that about procurement from own industry, and also the second part of dovetailing the private sector industry into the defense manufacturing sector. So alongside, if you see, Now, this is coming in the budget part. If you see the other side, the Minister of Defense, Mr. Rajnath Singh, he announced a negative list. Now, what is a negative list? Negative list is a list of items which you cannot take from the foreign vendors. So in the negative list, earlier 101 items in 2020, they had listed out. In 2021, they listed out 108 items, making a list of 209 items. And the important among them were radars, tank engine, airborne, early warning systems, and so on. So many short-range missiles, floating deck, anti-submarine rockets. So these are some of the items which the defense minister listed in that list. It's very easy. If you just type it, Google it, I can show it here also, but otherwise you can just type negative list of defense procurement items. You will find that 108 items listed on 21st or 31st May 2021. This list was released. Now, when this list came out, and now the budget comes out, and the impetus is given to the procurement through the indigenous industry, that joins both ends together, right? So a list of items you should not import from foreign vendors, and own industry is getting a boost. Now we move closer to Atmanirbhar Bharat. I personally feel the day is not far when we will be announcing that we are from being a arms importer, we either become self-sufficient or net zero arms importer, or probably little we could export also. Right, that'll add to our own revenue. So I'm looking at defense industry really making a fillip and coming up with a sophisticated technological advanced platform in the coming decade to make our country self-sufficient as far as defense manufacturing is concerned. Right. So I will end my talk here. I would be happy to take any questions if any student has, as far as the defense budgeting is concerned. I have not touched upon much of a comparison, though all this data is available. What other countries are spending. Just touched upon China. Pakistan, of course, is not near. China and US, they are spending a lot of money. But as the India is concerned, we are also keeping our borders quite secure with our adequate allocations. Yes. Let's take the question, please.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation on the defense budget. Now, I would like to invite the students to ask their questions. Okay. Take it away.
Good morning, sir. My name is Kiran. I'm a second year student here at the department. I'll ask you. So am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, I have two questions to you. One is, how effective are initiatives like Innovation for Defense Excellence, which was mentioned in several papers and even in the defense budget, in expediting the pursuit of self-reliance? My second question is, you did talk about how the Indian defense sector is moving towards privatization and private players coming up. So will the marketization of defense sector, especially in R&D that you mentioned, help India? And what are the challenges in this process of marketization? This is with respect to especially countries like USA, wherein we have multiple players are coming up bidding for the designs. So with respect to that, these are my two questions.
Thank you. So coming to the first question, that is how effective are innovations and new startups? Well, can you switch off your mic? My voice is echoing. Yeah. So the first part is how effective is going to be our innovations, right? See, we are making the startups are coming up, and we should give them some time. Okay. Now we have the best of the brains in our country. There's no doubt in that. We are exporting brains, and if the same brains get opportunity to do startups in India, the sky is the limit. I personally feel sky is the limit. Today, the world is globalized, the technologies are available, the level of education which is presently available in our country is at the top level. And I think nothing will stop us, nothing will stop our startups to achieve the best in the industry. Yes, give them some time, right? Don't expect wonders in the first year or second year, but it will come. And I think we'll have the best as compared to other countries, the best kind of innovations. Second part you said is what are the challenges Indian defense sector, as a comparing when we compare ourselves with other countries. Yes, there are going to be challenges. You think we are going to be developing and they are going to be sleeping? Certainly not. They are also going to be developing, right? They are also going to be at that level from where they are now. They are also going to move forward, right? But it does not necessarily mean that we should get demoralized with that, right? All other sectors, if you see, we have really caught up with the world. And that's how we have become the fourth largest economy in the 70 years. The main pillars is our stable governance and our system in which all the sectors get due attention, right? So that being the main pillar of our growth, I personally feel that yes, we should compete. Why not? If there are no challenges, we will not achieve the best, right? If the private sector does not have challenges, it will not achieve. Today, if you see the car industry and you go yourself 30 years back, haven't we come with at par with any of the foreign cars? Today, our own industry is producing the same kind of quality, and I feel the day is not far when we will take the challenges and be one of the best. Any other?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mike, I can't hear you.
Yeah. Our PhD candidate, Ms. Anupama, has a question.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for your very informative lecture. My name is Anupama. I'm a PhD candidate at the department. So there are aspects of the defense budget, such as technology, that are often clubbed under headings that pertain to the civilian sphere, such as the space budget is separate, but it definitely has relevance for India's overall military power. So does the funds allocated to encouraging startups and so on. So in policy making, especially in budget planning, I wanted to know whether India has come around to India views them in a wholesome manner, like how China does with respect to civil military fusion, to make the most of, say, when you talk about technology, to draw both civilian and military utility from the technology. So are they viewed in a compartmentalized manner, or from the point of view of budget planning, is there an attempt made towards synergizing these different heads so that India can move forward and achieve its larger goals? Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you for the question. Now, as far as the budget head is concerned, you may find that yes, space research is getting a separate head, right? But a part of the space research is also contributing to the military. Now, we have already sent GPS satellites. We have a navigation system in place, which is a regional navigation system, right? But the satellites which have gone up are for the navigation of our naval fleet when it is out in the high seas. Now, at the budget, the allocations have to be separate because they have to be accounted for. But at the implementation, they will converge as far as the national security is concerned. All this comes under the larger umbrella of national security. Second part is regarding the civil military fusion, right? It will take place, and as far as China is concerned, the China's budget and allocations are real in shadows. Nobody is actually even coming to know how much real allocations are coming in. there are only most of it is speculation. But as far as our country is concerned, I feel the moment this R&D develops and the defense PSUs which are there, as well as the private sector defense industry, like I quoted two of them, which have already come in, and when going to manufacture guns with in conjunction with these foreign players, the MDSL and L&T, there will be a time when their products are being purchased by us. So, not in real terms that there will be a fusion, but when our army becomes a vendor for the private player, so of course there is integration, right? So that stage should reach where the vendor, the manufacturer, even if it's a private company, knows this is my market. And then the government will also probably open up the market to other countries where they can benefit and the government can benefit. Now, if you see the Rafale deal, it was not just between Dassault and the Indian Air Force. It was a deal between the governments.
So I couldn't hear the last bit because your voice is strong.
Yeah. See, what I'm trying to say is, when a private sector becomes a big player and they start even exporting, the government comes in. Now, we have purchased Rafale from Dassault Aviation. Now, the deal was signed with the governments. Dassault is a private company. But the deal is signed with the government, with even the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister visiting that country. Because that industry, though it's a private, is of a national level importance. Whom they should sell, the government decides, because that comes under the national interest. So larger umbrella is this thing, and of course the fusion of the private sector and defense manufacturing PSUs will come in. And I think there will be clear lines what defense PSUs are manufacturing and what the private sector will be manufacturing. I hope that answers.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, in case somebody is thinking about any other question, I wanted to know something from you, sir.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Because your video is frozen.
Yeah, I also don't know why it is frozen. I've got a quite stable, and I can hear you very clearly.
Okay. So as you know, we have come up with this 5-year.
Yes. Can you see me now?
I can't see you, but I can hear you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have come up with this 5-year modernization fund for our military. What is your view about that? Is that in some way also included within our budget, or is it something out of the budget?
No, not directly included in the budget. Yes, but there are some amount which the government keeps in order to go in for some emergency purchases also. But that is a separate allocation as and when required.
Okay.
So in this budget, that is not included.
Another question which I wanted to know is that again, earlier there was this reference to China. The Chinese have actually cut down their troops so that they can spend more on modernization and equipments. So are we also going to do the same now? Because as you know, again, you yourself has said how a huge amount of our military budget is going for compensation purposes.
Yes. Now, I got a point. As far as the present level is concerned of our troops, I personally feel that there is no immediate cut which is emphasized, and this will continue because of our already both fronts of the borders, that is China and Pakistan front, are active. Hence, at this stage, I don't think any government would, plan for any cut in manpower. However, in the coming time, when the technological weapons come in, or they boost up our, either it is the guarding of the borders and other thing, those are the times when they may consider. But as of now, the troops which are there are which are required, because you see, we have to be ready on both the fronts. Whenever you have these technical strategic discussions, you will hear a two-front war. What if both the fronts open? And then we have a big face, maritime border, right? So considering our geopolitical situation, considering our geographical situation and the geopolitical scenario, at this stage, I don't think we are going to go in for a cut. Rather, there is a deficiency in terms of officers and even men. The government is putting all its efforts, gear up with the deficiency and fill it up.
Okay, thank you, sir. One last question to you. This is slightly away from the defense budget, but somewhere related to the modernization part.
Yeah.
What do you think is related to this breakup of ordnance factories into, again, governmental public sector units? Would it have been better if it would have been privatized? So what is your view on that?
See, privatization or defense PSUs is a totally different game altogether, which will take place or has already started taking place a little bit as the PSUs. As far as the ordnance factory is concerned, their change is basically to, I think, to improve their efficiency and output, and that's what the board said. And I think it will serve the purpose. The factories have been and they will continue to manufacture what they're manufacturing, albeit the more impetus, a more stimulus to them to come up to the required level of the defense forces. So I think it's a good move. There's nothing negative about it. The factories are going to be there. Only thing, their mode is going to change. That's all. And the control is going to change.
Yeah, we have one more question from one of our students.
Yes.
Hello, sir. My question is regarding the defense of offset clauses, which the government has changed. I think 2 years ago, the government removed the offset clauses of defense acquisition policy. So, was this a wise step?
I didn't clearly understand. I think the voice is breaking. Either there's a problem at my end or your end. I really don't know. But I could. Can you replicate what you said? Something on offset you were saying.
Yes, sir. 2 years ago, I think in 2020, the government removed the offset clause regarding the defense acquisition. So, was this a wise step taken?
Yeah. Overall, if you see what offset was being given and what offset is being now planned, overall, keeping in mind our national security and what all things we need to manufacture, we want the technology transfer to take place. So that was a good move, I think, as far as the offset clause was concerned. And it will continue. And now with this own manufacturing coming in, this offset thing will anyway slowly get over. When we have our own manufacturing coming up in a big way, you will find in the next coming 5 to 6 years. So these things will finish.
Okay, so I think that's all for the questions here. Or anybody has a question? Yeah, I think Madhuvanti has a question.
Thank you for the informative lecture, sir. So, considering the growing relevance and importance of cyber and its related technologies, do you think our defense budget talks about those technologies and mitigating the vulnerabilities in those?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very nice. Absolutely. It may not talk of in specific terms, but let me tell you, the armed forces are in a big way into technological advancements. Cyber, we already have a big cyber allocations, cyber teams which are developing new and new methods of programming, because cyber is something which is going to be a future of the technological war. So though the budget may not talk in specific terms that this is for cyber security, this is for this purpose, but inside the defense forces, lot of stress is being given to develop our cyber fields you can talk of, or in terms of cyber advancements, so that we are, as far as we are secure, as well as we are ready to take on any cyber attacks. So there is a focus on that. Now the budget may not directly or indirectly talk about it, but there are allocations which I can share with you.
Yes, I think we have one more question.
I'm happy to see, sir, a lot of questions and the interest in the defense.
Hi, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. I guess the more you've been answering our questions, I guess the more questions are actually starting to come out. So thank you very much for kindly spending all this time and taking our questions. My name is Vineet Krishnan. I'm a PhD student here. And my query actually was raised by your previous answer to the question two questions back, I believe, where you said the coming of our own manufacturing and the effect of the change that can actually have going forward in our defense modernization, defense modernization ambitions. And my question actually is with regard to how this own manufacturing is going to be. I mean, we look at another strategic sector such as the space sector, where similarly there is the private industry being brought in, but a lot of the talk there has been in the civilian space sector about ISRO doing quite a bit of hand-holding in the initial years, perhaps even the first decade or so, and also sharing plenty of its own blueprints with regard to, say, manufacturing of the PSMC, for example, being one particular case that can be pointed out, and sharing that with a conglomeration of private Indian industries to take forward. But now in the defense sector, are we expecting or are we projecting that DRDO is going to play, or let's say individual labs of DRDO, of the 55 odd labs, are going to do that process? Are we identifying private Indian industry which has the capacity and then putting them forward with individual DRDO labs? Or are we expecting a lot of the capacity building to actually be coming from foreign players? Because we've also similarly simultaneously been opening up FDI entry into the defense sector also. So are we expecting a Lockheed and a Boeing to be the handholders in the defense weapon manufacturing sector? Or is that job going to be primarily with DRDO? I hope.
This actually time is going to tell, but what I can presume is, right, is that certainly the start of thing DRDO will hold the hands, because if you see, the part of the DRDO budget for R&D has been specified for the private sector. So probably the private sector, as the R&D is concerned, is going to be dovetailed along with the DRDO. So initial hand-holding will be done, even if it requires sharing of certain things, which can be done. And as far as our industry growing up to the world levels, you see, I'll give you one example. In 1980s, so we had these tanks. We had got these tanks from Russia, and there is a vehicle which takes the tank. When tanks only operate on their ground when they are in the war zone, but when they have to be carried from, let's say, they are presently at Ambala or at Mathura, and they have to be carried to the border, there are some vehicles, specialized vehicle called as, we were buying those vehicles from Russia. The name of the vehicle was MAZ, MAZZ. Heavy vehicle, उसके ऊपर टैंक लोड होता था और वो उसको रोड पे, it was a tired vehicle, because the tank moves on the road will break because the tank tracks. But that was tired vehicle and heavy vehicle. Now the same vehicle is being manufactured by Tatas by the name of Tatra. I have seen this in my service. At the beginning of my service, that those vehicles, Mars, the Russian vehicles, huge vehicles, now suddenly came Tatra. Initially when it came, Tatra came, people said, oh, how will this vehicle take the tank? But Tatas had done their job. They've done their bit. That vehicle today is in full usage as the armed forces are concerned to shift the tanks from where they are located in peace and where they have to be placed in war. So I never underestimate our own industry, whether it is private or it is the military PSUs. If you see, Tejas is one of the most versatile aircrafts which HAL has built to the world standards. And I feel the day is not far that there will be countries that make a beeline to take Tejas from us. So I don't underestimate them, just give them some time. And I personally don't feel that there will be a need. If there will be need, the government will take a call whether to go in with collaboration with these foreign industry. But believe me, no industry will share their their actual technological advancements. We have to make our own roads, and we will make it with Atmanirbhar. There is no doubt in that. If Tatra could take on the work, probably India will make its own tank. We already have made one, and we'll make our own advanced tank in coming time. So the day is not far. Just keep and watch, and people are working in the field who will show you the best, because the talent pool which we have, it is there. When the talent is there, you guys are the talent of the future, right? When you go and work for Lockheed, you will work for Mahindra Systems or L&T and produce the same in a given time, right? I hope that answers your question. Yeah, anything else? Sir, I can't hear you.
Any questions online? Okay, so if there are no more questions, let me invite Mr. Kiran Bhatt for the vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. From learning the basic definition of budget to understanding the key role of defense budget and its importance, this talk covered a wide range of topics. The views of various prominent economists help us to understand this basic framework of defense economics and its strategic importance for a nation. Colonel further went on to explain how India's been importing and how the defense imports has been costing India. The examples of various weapons and aircrafts helped us to understand the cost of imports and the need to develop domestic defense industry. Further, in the talk, we also learned the need to look the budget in actual terms rather than as a percentage of GDP. Also, various changes that has been brought up in defense budget over the years were discussed. So I would like to, it's my honor to thank Colonel Dr. Mohinder Pal Singh for taking out time from his busy schedule to enlighten us on this crucial matter amid the rising national security concerns and answering all the questions in detail. I would like to thank Dr. Rashmi Bhaskaran for giving the students an overview of the national budget and setting the tone for discussion. I would further like to thank Dr. Ravindranathan P, head in charge, for providing us with this platform and for making possible of this enlightening and enriching discussion. I would like to thank Dr. Anand for coordinating and moderating the discussion. Finally, I would like to thank all the students, research scholars, and other participants, both physical in the offline and online mode, for their active participation and making the discussion lively. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, everyone, and the organizers for this event. Mike is also.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, and we will continue our engagements later. in other areas of defense and strategic assessments. Thank you.
Thank you. Permission to leave now. And thanks a lot.
Bye.
Jai Hind.
Bye.